morning, they can just jump into the conversation as we keep going. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our KERT meeting. This is the first day of the third provincial state of emergency. I think it's fair to say that none of us wished that this meeting would be taking place under these conditions, but here we are. So there are a few things on our agenda today, and one of the things that I find incredibly useful from this group is getting your insight, your feedback, your eyes and ears to the ground in your sector to help me not only with decisions we have to make as a city, but also in the advocacy work that's ongoing right now. So whether it's conversations that I'm having with either our local public health, whether it's Dr. Moore, or in conversations I'm having with other mayors and with the province, what would be really useful for me is if maybe we could start by going just around the table, and I'm going to ask each of you for a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to ask just for your perspective, lay of the land within your sector, how you're feeling, how you think people in your sector are feeling. Then secondly, on the advocacy piece, if I'm speaking with the province, if I'm speaking with other mayors, what is it that you think is something that we should be focusing on, keeping top of mind? What is it that you would want to bring to our awareness to make sure that as we have these conversations in advocacy and look to see trying to get out of this shutdown, whenever that will be, how to manage that as effectively as possible? So if that's okay, I know it's kind of a heavy way to start the meeting, but that would be really, really helpful for me. So I'm wondering if we could just take a few minutes and go around the table to have that discussion. That would be great. I'm just going to, if I can, I'll just start with how the squares look on my screen. So Dan, I'm going to start with you. If you could let us know how you're doing, how you're feeling, and what you think should be on my radar and on the province's radar.
I just finished drafting a message to our workforce, our own workforce, and the tone of the message was that the construction industry is deemed essential. So we are so privileged to be able to work and have been for quite a while. And one of our industry fears is how complacent we become because we are so privileged, and how important it is that we keep up the good work and social distancing and masking and hand washing and et cetera. So a concern for me, firstly, is how thankful we are to be in the construction industry and to be able to work. And what, from an advocacy standpoint, honestly, that's a whole afternoon's conversation. It truly is. There's so many balls in the air, and I so don't envy your job or Dr. Moore's job or the Premier's job. But for me and for our group, vaccines are everything. It just has to somehow, if there was pressure to be put, the statistics, from what I understand, indicate that the more vaccines to get out, the less issues there are, and I just that for me is that's the most important piece. I mean, not to disrespect all of the other challenges, but it seems like. And I hate, feels like Ontario has been hasn't been getting enough, I guess. And so thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Dan. No, that's great feedback and great perspective for sure. Next on my screen will be Pavna. Pavna, how are things going? Where it's perspective from the nonprofit sector?
Well, with the nonprofit sector, especially with frontline agencies, they can't stop what they're doing, right? So they're all finding different ways. The nice part is that they're all set up for virtual, remote, other than those who are shelters and food providers. They've got systems in place, they've got procedures in place, so they're set, but they're just tired, which everyone is. So the nice part is public health has been amazing about making sure people in congregate settings have been vaccinated. So a lot of the agency's staff, at least the frontline people, have been vaccinated, as have clients. that's always a challenge because a lot of harder to serve clients are transitional. So getting them back for the second vaccine or even convincing them to have the first one is something that our agencies have been focusing on. So that's continuing. So I don't think there'll be much change due to the lockdown because business has to continue as always. There may be fewer places that some people can hang out in when they don't have a permanent place to rest. But the nice part is, working with the city, the agencies really do have safe spaces like the youth shelter and In From the Cold and the ICH, the Integrated Care Hub, are all working well to serve the population as well as they can be with all the challenges that come with that. With advocacy, one of the things that we really are hoping for, and there is a national movement from the United Way, National, YMCA, Big Brothers, Boys and Girls Club, to lobby the federal government for continued funding. All the COVID funding is wrapped up March of this year. There is no new funding on the horizon. And quite frankly, our community between the Community Foundation got about $500,000. We got almost $2 million to flow through. Without that, we couldn't have managed through the pandemic. So it's really important. So we'll come to you for that, Mayor, because that I think is a really important aspect. We've circulated to our board and our close people just to get the word out. And there is a really great tool where you can type in your name, your postal code, and it goes right to your MP. It's all nicely done, so I can send that around if anyone's interested in joining the voice to make sure that essential services are included in the budget for this year. Because we haven't got any news. I know they're listening, but we really need to make sure that they understand how essential it is. So all good, amazing agencies working hard, continuing to serve some of the hardest to serve, but also we know mental health is on the rise. Food, we're seeing a 30% increase in new clients coming to these meal programs. So definitely now the impact of not having worked for a year is starting to show.
No, that's great, Bhavna. Thank you for that feedback, and that certainly confirms some of what we've heard from others in the sector as well. So I appreciate that for sure. Next on my screen is Susan. Susan, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for you, I'm sure, over the last week. Would love to get just your perspective, certainly at the center, but just retail in general, and anything again, just eyes and ears on the ground, and then also on the advocacy piece.
So from a public health perspective, I mean, I won't go into detail. I'm sure everybody's aware that cases are increasing across the province and locally. And this third wave is really being fueled by the variants of concern. And that's true locally as well. So we're seeing, increased transmissibility, increased severity of disease. Our vaccine strategy is rolling out. We have vaccinated approximately 28% of the population with a first dose. We're doing really well locally. From a public health perspective, what we're hoping that the stay-at-home order will achieve is a reduction in cases so that we can get enough people immunized in the month of April to really slow the disease down, because it's easy to lose control with the variant of concern, which I think we've seen in Toronto and Peel and York. So we're really hoping that we'll get the breathing space that we need to get more vaccine in arms, and we're working really hard to do that. We have a lot of case and contact management that we're still doing. So we still have cases coming in, so it's a pressure on public health to do the case and contact management and the vaccine clinics at the same time. So, our staff are doing a great job, but I'm concerned about their mental health and the hours that they're working. And I know we're not the only agency in that boat. I'm not suggesting that other people are working every bit as hard as public health are, because they are. We also will be looking at what does this stay-at-home order mean, and we don't have the regulations yet. So any questions on what that means in terms of, limits to various, religious services or that sort of thing, we don't have that information yet. In terms of advocating for the future, there's a couple of things that public health is concerned about. One of them is mental health and addictions. we're seeing more overdoses than we've ever seen locally, but also, across the province, but also locally, it's a huge concern. So I think we need to focus a little bit on that. I think that mental health in general has been really challenged by COVID. And so we need to be looking forward. How are we going to support the people in our community once the restrictions ease? So I think we need to put some thought into that. And the other piece that is concerning is still the lack of access to paid sick days in a really timely fashion. And with the shutdown, if more people are going to lose their jobs, then the process that they have to go through to access some of the funding that is available creates a gap between their last paycheck and when they can get that money. And that means that they don't have money for food or rent or that sort of thing. And yes, I did hear Ford's can retort to that request, but I still think that that's an issue. And I think that's it for public health.
Thanks, Susan. Yes, no, I know that's been a real discussion point between the province and the feds, but certainly in my discussions with mayors, it's exactly that point. It's the timing of getting those dollars that makes a difference for people deciding whether or not to go into work or not. So 100%. And certainly appreciate the work you guys are doing on the vaccine front. We are leading the way provincially right now. That's been highlighted actually in a number of media stories lately, and certainly there's been some concern. Would that mean that we would start to get less supply than we've gotten? So Susan, do you have any sense on that? I know that Kieran still feels pretty confident that supply is going to continue, and that our vaccination percentage is only going to continue to go up for the next few weeks. Do you have any perspective on that?
So our vaccine supply has been fairly steady. What the difficulty is that they won't give you long-term estimates. So you'll get your kind of estimates for 2 or 3 weeks, and so we plan on that. But it has been consistent, and they've delivered on what they said they were going to deliver. We're anticipating that by the end of May, June, that there's going to be a lot more vaccine. So we're trying to strategize how we're going to get all of that vaccine into arms in June if all of that vaccine comes. And we're also hoping that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is the 1-dose vaccine, is licensed in Canada. And I think the timeline for that is June as well. And I think for some of our more vulnerable populations, having 1 dose might be a better vaccine strategy for some people. So we're excited about that. So we think we're okay for vaccine. It's still not the smooth sailing that we'd all hoped when it was first announced, but we seem to be on a fairly even keel right now.
Great, Susan, thank you. I know everybody else in the group really appreciates the updates from your side as well. That's great. Next, I'm going to go to the other Susan, Susan St. Clair. Susan, how are you doing? How are things in retail, and what can you tell me? What should be on my radar, and what should we be making sure that is front and center from an advocacy point of view?
Well, things at Cataraqui are good. I can only speak for Cataraqui. Well, you're right. The last week in your previous comment has been a roller coaster. Our notice to make change in our operation has been a very short timeline, and just interpreting the documents and making sure that we're adhering to what's expected of us has been a challenge. And then we went through the exact same thing again yesterday. And the shutdown is not a shutdown for us, with retail being able to be open for curbside pickup. And our food court can be open for takeout. And so even though we're shut down, we're not shut down as a building, and we continue to operate. I think fatigue is a huge part of it. And I think it's just fatigue of dealing with the constant change and so on. But we tend to, what we're experiencing is that we have a shutdown, then we have an opening, and we rebuild our sales, and everyone gets momentum going, and then we shut down again. And I think that's what the fatigue is. But I think, listening to everybody, the shift in the dialogue is to the vaccine, which I think is our future. I think all of us are doing a tremendous job washing our hands, doing the things that we're supposed to be doing to do our part to not spread the virus. But we need to get the vaccines out to everybody, and anything, on that route. The other issue is too, and maybe this is just a personal opinion, but being brushed with the whole province and having to adhere to what's happening across the whole province has a positive and a negative. I know that when we shut down as a province, then we don't have people coming from hotspots to come to our market. But at the same time, it's just a little bit difficult when we're doing fairly well, generally well, and then we're shut down again. So that's just my thought.
It's not just your thoughts, Susan. I think there are a lot of people that would agree with that perspective. There is some frustration there about the ability to have a regional approach and more local decision making. At the same time, understanding the risks, and certainly travel is always the big piece. And I think that's what the province is most concerned about right now, which is why we're facing the KERT situation. That being said, one of the pieces of advocacy that will be important, certainly in the next few weeks, is hopefully as the situation gets back under control. The last 2 times that we've come out of shutdown, it hasn't been all at once. So there's been that window to kind of move back to a regional approach. And so certainly, if there's a way that we can position to come out of this shutdown as early as possible, whatever that looks like, then that's something that certainly we can focus on. But again, I'm interested in just getting that feedback from the group, if that's something, how hard to push that, when and how. Obviously the timing is key as well. So that's great.
Thank you,
Susan. Appreciate it. Okay, next is Abba.
Morning. I'm almost afraid to talk. I don't know.
No.
I'm not sure if I'm like angry, frustrated, gonna cry. That's kind of like all my emotions right now. I feel like
that's okay. Tell us. I would rather have honest feedback for sure.
When am I not honest with you? Let's be serious here. But anyway, I think like for me, the personal sector has been closed 40% or had reduced dealings for 40% out of the year. And then not only that, like we have to do contact tracing all the time. We have put things in place. We have barriers, yet we seem to be the ones that are always persecuted. It seems like we feel indispensable or dispensable. You have a big box store that has no tracing. So you can say, hey, if you went here on a date, check it in. Whereas you can come to my spa, I can tell you who came there, what time they came here, where they're coming from, their address. And yet like, always we're the ones that are like, no, we're going to shut you down first because face to face, which makes zero sense to me. And then, I furloughed my employees 3 times. They're exhausted. Like we're trying to build up. And then when you build up, you get penalized in a sense. So for example, like you're working hard, you get the sales for December, and then you don't get lockdown subsidy because your sales for November, December, which it's dependent on, is high. So then I was closed for 6 weeks and there's no relief because we're being penalized for the time that we were able to be open. Like it makes zero sense. And it's so frustrating and it's so exhausting. And like, sorry, that is how I feel. Like, I just don't know where we're going. And I think that's the frustrating thing, is that you can't tell where the tide is coming. And like, we're not following the data. It's like, we have these people who are really our employers, yourself, the Mr. Adam, Mr. Garrison, like, where are their voices? What are they saying? What meeting has Ian Ada called with small businesses? Is he not the advisor? Where is his advocacy on behalf of us? I haven't seen that. It's like we have all these people and there's a lot of talking and there's a lot of meetings and there's a lot of committees and there's no action oriented. There's no following of statistics. What is the data telling us? Do we need to vaccinate all the young kids who are transferring? Maybe that's what we should do. So maybe as like a local advocacy, let's look at our data. Where's the spread? How can we mitigate that? And regional or not regional approach, people are coming to Kingston. When we open up, they come from elsewhere. The last year has told us that. So it's not a fantasy that this is gonna happen. The reality is that it is. Once people can go somewhere and they see it's green, they're gonna travel. But what we have seen is that the things that have been in place in our restaurants, in our personal spas, in our retail stores have been following the guidelines. And those guidelines have been working. We haven't had massive outbreaks because someone's coming from Toronto, because people have been coming from Toronto, Quebec, and Montreal for the past year. So we have shown that we are able to manage those things by putting things in place. So where do we go from that here? You know, we're like playing the same thing. It's like we're like in a rat race and we're just going around and around and doing nothing differently. So I guess vaccination, obviously, but who we are vaccinating, how that is going to be distributed so that when we do come out and play, like, are we vaccinating? We're not shut down. Okay, fine. Are Uber drivers vaccinated for Uber Eats? Are the skip the dishes people vaccinated? Are the people working in the grocery stores vaccinated? Are our teachers vaccinated? Should those be the people? Like, what is the approach? It's like, you know, no one is getting that information as to how things are rolling out and where they should be. And that is the most frustrating thing. Are we not a data-driven society? So why are we not looking at the data and making steps to do things for that? I guess that's where I'm at today. And I'm sorry that I'm emotional, but like literally I'm at my wit's end. I don't know where else like to go with that. So I'm gonna mute now. That's my 2 cents.
Honestly, Abba, thank you. That is exactly the feedback that I need. And a lot of what you said, I'm sure that many of us would absolutely agree with. There's a great points. So just know I'm taking notes this morning and doing everything that I can. It's okay. So if I can vent for a minute, it is frustrating for me. It's frustrating that we can work so hard as a community and then we get swamped in on these provincial decisions, and then it's really hard to then go back and then try to again carve out those pieces where again we're data driven. I think we're doing lots of good things locally to help with that. So we're going to keep that fight up. Absolutely. I understand, and I really appreciate you sharing that out for sure. Okay, well, next is Tim. Tim, what can you tell us? Again, just whatever, the more feedback you give me, the better for sure.
Sure. Obviously, I echo a lot of Abba's sentiment in terms of our industry. We do feel picked on. Personal services, gyms, and restaurants were really the only thing that was closed in the first lockdown, and we heard the stories of hundreds of people in Costco's and Walmart's, et cetera, while we're practicing such strict, stringent protocols. And in terms of data, there's very little evidence of transmission in those businesses. So it was really frustrating. And you know, of course, now it's a little bit more of an even playing field, but still. And the lack of notice. So I know all restaurants had done large orders for the Easter weekend and we didn't have time to cancel them. It has been a real trying time. And again, I've laid off staff again for the 3rd time. Everyone's getting used to it, but is this something we want to get used to? For the restaurant sector in particular, there's the fact that we can't have outdoor dining is nonsensical. So people can if a group of 5 can get takeout and go sit on a park table, but they can't sit on a restaurant patio, socially distanced, sanitized, et cetera, et cetera. There's been no transmission in outdoor dining. So it's hard to understand. In terms of advocacy, I agree with Abba on the vaccination targeting. If our industries are so perceived as being so dangerous, then you know, frontline hospitality workers should be back first in line. You know, along with all the other sort of personal services and people that are dealing with the public. Then it gets to money. This setback, you know, obviously doesn't even come close to recovering what we've lost already. I know in my businesses and many others, we're down at least 50% in sales on last year. So that making that back is a long years and years, but June is going to come really quick. And that's when they're talking about ending rent subsidies and wage subsidies. So I think a really important piece of advocacy that those programs really need to continue for the unforeseeable future, you know, until we reach herd immunity and we get to the point where we can really start getting back to business. But yeah, it's been frustrating. I can't say it isn't, and just sort of the logic behind the way certain decisions are made is really hard to understand. you can't help but think that the big box stores have a little more lobbying power at Queen's Park, and therefore have been allowed to sort of stay open where small business gets shut down. Anyway, that's my bit.
Thanks, Tim. No, that's very helpful. And I will say that even just at the meeting that I had with mayors just yesterday, the two things on our agenda, number one, vaccination prioritization, kind of getting exactly what the issues I think that you and have raised, right? If there are sectors that are seen to be high risk, can we prioritize that? And then secondly, outdoor, for sure. So everything that our understanding is that outdoor is certainly safer. So what can we do to promote whether it's activities or business outdoors, and be able to look at that more carefully. So that's something that we'll have to continue discussions here locally on that as well, for sure. Tricia, you're next on my screen. Would love to hear from you and get your perspective.
Well, I think what you're hearing from the hospitality and the arts sector, who have been so strict in their protocol, and everybody has really adapted, and we said, okay, we'll go online. And so we went online, and we even restricted it. We'll go online only with Kingston artists, so nobody's traveling. And even though the website of the government said that streaming was possible, and there's no difference between pressing the recording button or pressing a streaming button, that has now been cut off for a month. So we've had to cancel things. And you look at the plight of the independent artist in Kingston. It's just awful. And it's way safer to be in a concert hall around Mylar screens with 14 feet between you than it is walking downtown. In terms of the logic, there is no logic to canceling streaming. Whereas what Pavno was saying, that they have the ability to carry on their services. If you look during the pandemic and isolation, where people are actually they're turning to the arts to enrich their life when they're in isolation. And to cancel that when all the protocols are in place, in fact, no traveling is happening because it's Kingston artists, it's affecting Kingston artists and independent artists who are already struggling. And there's got to be a time where the logic of the protocol and safety has to be looked at, rather than just saying, what's the arts, it's a little crazy, it can't happen. Except, it's all commercial filming, that can continue. But in a concert hall, when there's only 3 people on stage and they're far apart and have all the protocol happening, of course, that's going to be dangerous. It just, the logic is not there. And I think we have to make sure, if I was to say what's the next step, to make sure that we're supporting Kingston independent artists right now. It's just been tough. Everybody's been great. They've adapted, but when we're cut off at the knees that we're not allowed to communicate the arts online, that's when we've crossed the line. And I do think that we have to be able to advocate for the city of Kingston and for the artists to make sure that we can continue online activity. And everybody's taken for granted. Of course, we're going to stop public performances, but online performances with 3 people on stage, all protected, that's when we've actually gone into the less than logical zone. And so I just think to be able to support artists, and I really feel for ABBA, because it feels like, oh, this must be not safe, and it's cut off without any data saying otherwise. So I'm here to support the independent artists and the arts organizations such as the Grand and the Isabel and the Kingston Symphony, who are trying to support their artists and trying to connect with their audience and trying to enrich the community during this period of isolation.
Thank you, Trish, and thanks for raising that point. So I've marked that down as well. We'll push on that. I completely hear what you're saying there. The online piece is really, really important, at least until we can get back to larger crowds, for sure.
Let's base it on data rather than, oh, the arts, they must be scary, let's cancel them. Like that, it does not make any sense.
I could not agree more. Data-driven decisions, that sounds the right move to me. Okay, thanks everybody. Really appreciate the feedback. I wouldn't actually like, if I can, take a couple of minutes and hear from our support organizations as well. So how we have Allison from TK, Michelle from the Downtown BAA, and Karen from the Chamber. Wondering if you guys could just provide any additional input or and any other perspectives on either the current conditions of the advocacy that would be useful to discuss. Allison, do you want to go first?
Sure, no problem. I mean, for us, I think it's very, very similar to what many of those on the front line are talking about. Of course, we're a support organization, but it's just really challenging to get a lay of the land and to know what's going on. So, you know, of course, I'm focused on marketing and trying to support local businesses. And, you know, we had our Q2 plans all the way through to June ready to go, very local, very regional, working with public health. And, you know, even with last week's announcement, it was sort of like stay home, but they didn't say stay home. And so then that becomes really challenging to know what type of language you can use to support the community and what is okay to be encouraging. So at this point, I mean, Kingston Licious, we had made the decision previously to continue it because that's done a good job at supporting the hospitality community, the restaurants. So we already are continuing that for April and May, and that will be our focus for the next while. We do have a program coming, hopefully, for in the summer around gift cards, Visa gift cards with hotel stays for a couple of nights once we get to the point where we can at least be regional. So we're looking forward to that. And then on the advocacy side, I mean, I won't repeat what's already been said, but, you know, similar in terms of wage and rent subsidy continuation, we're hearing that from our members. We're also hearing, you know, with the Ontario budget, happy to see that there was a tourism grant added to the small business grant for some who didn't originally qualify, but still seeing some gaps around accommodations in terms of, you know, retroactive property tax assessment that might provide some relief based on revenue. Last year, and also I would say from a marketing perspective, last year we were fortunate to receive an RRRF grant that helped offset about 50% of the MAT loss, which heavily funds the work we do for marketing, and we've yet to hear anything about that recurring in 2021.
That's great. Thank you, Allison. That's very helpful for sure. Michelle, what are you hearing from the downtown business perspective? Michelle, we can't, I don't think you're muted, but I can't seem to hear you. Okay, maybe Michelle, what we'll do is we'll circle back if you want to say. I'm just not sure if there's a setting, so feel free to jump in later if there's if we can get that fixed. Maybe I'll go next to Karen. Karen, and I know you were a little late joining, and thanks for joining in. We're just doing a bit of a roundtable, getting a sense of both current conditions and just advocacy positioning, certainly about next steps. Would love to just get your perspective, what you're hearing from the business community, and any input that you'd like to put on my radar in particular.
Well, I apologize for being late, Your Honor. Question for us around advocacy, really, and I'm sorry I haven't heard the rest of the conversation, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but for us it's really been about making sure that they're getting the last bits of the grant money that closed yesterday. The small business grant was the call we're getting the most on. And again, clarity, I think Allison touched on it, is just clarity as to what the messaging is, what the government means when they're closed, what the yes and what the no's are. So we're spending a lot of time on phone calls, just helping people know that yes, they can do this, no, they can't do that. It's the confusion around the messaging that comes out from government and trying to make it a little bit easier for them to understand. The other part is that we're working heavily with the OCC, as you're aware, Mayor Patterson, is with vaccine, how we can help amplify the rollout of that in any way that we can help support. The messaging came out yesterday from OCC and the rest of the network around ramping up the vaccine piece so that we can then get businesses operating and not shutting down. We are hearing a lot from our hospitality members, particularly, where they're the hardest hit right now. Our retailers, we're okay with the 25%, but now they're back to curbside, which is making it much more difficult again for them to continue. And the other part was there was some sense of fair play with big boxes not being permitted to open up fully. So that was a bit of a wee break for some of the small businesses that we do hear complaints about that part of the big boxes. And that's really it. We're just trying to help amplify messaging from KFN-LNA around the vaccine piece, because that's what we're hearing. Most of the people got vaccines. Maybe then we could open our businesses. So that's really where we're at right now. I'm sure something else might come to me.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all, Karen. And by all means, if the discussions has gone on, is there anything else that's come to anyone's mind that we haven't touched on? Certainly on advocacy pieces, I'm hearing very strongly on vaccines, doing everything that we can to not only do we cannot supply, but also prioritizing certainly outdoor activities, doing what we can to position ourselves to come out as soon as we're able. Data-driven decisions, could not agree more. So this is really, really good feedback. Is there anything else that I've missed? Trish, go ahead.
Just the regional aspect, to really push through the regional aspect, so it's not one paintbrush. I think that's the key thing, because clearly Kingston has behaved so well, and not to punish us for good results, that to really push that if a region is actually in the orange or green zone, then it actually can continue its life and can create employment. And we're talking, again, we get back to that whole concept of employment of our citizens. And so I think that regionalization is a really important message.
Absolutely, Trish, thank you for that. And I wholeheartedly agree. So thank you. Thanks, folks. Abba, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that with the data. Yesterday, it was brought to our attention, and I looked it up in terms of unemployment in Ontario and in Canada. And I think COVID, for example, in Canada, there's been like a 42% decrease, unemployment rate. But in Kingston, it actually has been 53%. So we're 11% higher than the average. And I just thought that was interesting. And I think it's because we have such a high sector of hospitality and such. And so, just using that data to show like the economics are not supporting the thriving of our citizens. And we are, this high unemployment rate combined with other stuff really needs to push for the advocacy of like opening up vaccination, extending grants past June and the like, so that, we can function as a community.
Oh, that's a great point, Abba. Thank you for that. And of course, yeah, Alison, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on to that, just in terms of some work that we're doing around data that I think will speak to what Abba's talking about. We do maintain a dashboard, I've shared that with this group before, that helps us look at economic impact of tourism. And so we can see through those numbers that, year over year, we're at about a 50% decline in terms of the economic impact. But we're now working with 2031, who we've worked on our integrated destination strategy and a couple other pieces with to dig into the Stats Canada data to really understand the tourism related workforce, the loss of jobs here, how many tourism businesses are here, and looking at 2018 through 2020, and then maintaining this going forward so that we can truly capture the impact at a local level. So once that's complete, I'd be happy to bring it back to this group.
That would be great, Alison. That would be really helpful for sure. That's super. Thanks, folks. Really appreciate that discussion. And of course, this group, we're always doing a bit of balancing. We're focused on what we're dealing with right now. So what we need to do from an advocacy point of view, what we can do from a support and relief point of view right now, especially in the midst of the current shutdown. At the same time, having one eye on that, and then one eye, as some of you are pointing, to say, okay, how do we support the recovery coming out of this? This is the last shutdown that we have to go through. How do we make sure we can recover as well and as strongly as possible? And I really appreciate all the work that's being done on that. A lot of it happening at the working group level. And certainly, I think one thing that I think certainly fits in that vein is the next presentation that we have on the agenda. So we're very happy to have Anne-Marie and Jamie here with us this morning to provide a presentation on the online tourism and hospitality fundamentals training programs, and speaking to workforce and speaking to all those pieces that we've touched on. So Jamie and Emery, appreciate you guys coming. Would love to hear more. And so if it's okay, well, I'll hand the floor over to you guys. And then if you're okay to have any, to field any questions afterwards from the group, that would be great.
Certainly. And thanks so much for having us. I know that everyone is, this conversation has been actually incredible to listen to. And I understand that, we'll be changing pace a little bit with our discussion here, but just an incredible group with some, diverse perspectives and sometimes heartbreaking perspectives. But I just wanted to once again say thanks for getting us on the agenda to talk about this. We'll be about 10 minutes. We'll just give you a brief background on this pilot project, and then I'll share my screen and actually show you the program. And then Anne-Marie and I will field any questions that you have. So, a little less traditional, I'll start with the ask. What we're really hoping to get out of this is help amplifying our messaging on this program, because it is a pilot project, and this training program is free for the next 6 weeks for job seekers and for current employees in the tourism and hospitality sector. So through your organization or through your networks, we would really appreciate any help amplifying the messaging and getting people to participate in the program. So Tourism Hospitality Fundamentals is a pilot project that was funded from the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development. It's a Skills Advance Ontario program. So these are relatively short duration training programs, which are specifically supposed to support upskilling in a certain sector and in a certain geography. Ours is supporting, of course, tourism and hospitality in Kingston and Smiths Falls, that region. It's evolved, of course. We had originally put through our application in February, March of 2020, and had envisioned this being an in-person training program with a lot of interactive elements like restaurant tours and, getting on to the boat tours and things like that. By the time we were awarded the grant in August, that had changed drastically to what we thought might be a bit of a hybrid model with online elements. And then up until December, when we were really starting to develop this, and we had to make the decision to go fully online. So the program is fully online, self-guided. So that means participants essentially get their login information, and then they have access to all the different modules and do training at their own pace. So they're not boxed into a 1-week schedule. They can really do this training, a couple hours a day, depending on, work commitments or family commitments. The flexibility has been very well received. Now, it's not to say that participants are just sort of, given their codes and we send them on their way. Anne-Marie's a full-time support and with incredible background in the industry that's available to interact with them on a daily basis. And she hosts 3 tourism Zoom room meetings for participants every week. So there's still an interactive element as well. I'm going to share my screen. I think I should have, I don't know if I need to get permission to do that, but I'll just give it a shot. Are you seeing that okay? Nothing incriminating on my screen. I made sure of that beforehand. So, and feel free if you have a question while I'm going through it. I'll be fairly brief. This would be a participant's main screen once they log in. These are the modules. There's 6 core modules. So we have, which are standalone micro-credentials that are certified and awarded from the college once they get through them. Tourism 101, Introduction to Customer Service, Remarkable Customer Service. Any participant that does not have their food safety, WHMIS, or SmartServe This will be included at no cost in the program, and we'll make sure that they get through it. And then elective modules, where we'll have participants do 2 of 4, but we would make sure they do one of the ambassador programs, which I'll make sure to show this group today. So a typical learning pathway for, say, someone starts their tourism 101. And I'll also mention we do have 2 advisory committees that have helped inform the development of this. So it's all employer driven and association driven. We've also had our hospitality and tourism faculty working alongside with us every step of the way. They're clicking through. There will be a lot of information that they'll have to read. It's not overly burdensome. Somebody that has no background in this industry at all, has not done any of the third-party industry credentials. The program in its entirety will take about 35 hours to get through. And as I mentioned, that's flexible. That's can be done if somebody's keen over a week, but if somebody wants to take 2 or 3 weeks to do it, they can do that as well. We build in a lot of interactive learning activities, as well as a number of simulations and assessments, a lot of audio and visual components as well. So we've had faculty here, for example, we have Beverly Bowley and Brad Greenwood giving testimonials about where they started in the industry and how they were able to do have a fulsome career in the industry, not just that entry-level job, but here's why you should consider a career in the industry. So like I said, there's a lot of these interactive simulations. It's not just that, click through, read, regurgitate. We're really focusing on assessments so that learners can display that they actually know the skills, and that way we can verify that they have that skill set. So I'm going to just jump out of that and go down to the Kingston Tourism Ambassador module, which is really neat because this is custom built for Kingston. Probably one of the more custom and unique features to the program. So what we're trying to get out of this, and please keep in mind, this is a pilot project for these learners. Like, this is who it was designed for. This isn't something, let's say, that's outward facing and accessible to everyone. So, we had to do all of the photos and things like that in November when there's no real activity going on. So, you can imagine what a tourism ambassador program might look like if we were able to do virtual tours of the city while things were a little more attractive and in the summer months. And so tourism ambassador program, we're basically hoping to get the learner to understand what exists outside of their place of work. So if somebody's working at a Boston Pizza, we want them to be able to recommend other restaurants and attractions, and if somebody's interested in art, where should they go? So what we've done here is we've built an interactive map which incorporates some of the top destinations from a tourism perspective in Kingston. Say, for example, we went to the Agnes Etherington Art Gallery. What it is a 360 virtual tour, allowing participants to actually see these places so that they can talk about them. And that was a big barrier, obviously, of this program. With everyone having to do this digitally, there was no way to really get them out of their seat. So we're really happy about how this has turned out, and in particular, the community support and everyone's willingness to get us in there, to take these pictures and to provide us with extra information. All of the locations are sort of built, we build in small videos or like a couple test your knowledge questions, which might be the most important piece of information that you really need to know about the Agnes Etherington Art Gallery, and that's that they have an incredible Rembrandt collection. So I could go on. There's obviously a number of locations that we have similar tours. We have, and this module itself isn't just this interactive map. There's a number of different elements, but I wanted you to just get the feel of what the learning environment is for these participants, and to also get a chance to see some of the custom elements that are specific to Kingston. So just out of respect for your schedule and your agenda, I think we're probably close to 10 minutes. As mentioned, at this point, this pilot program is being delivered. It's open. We're taking registrations from job seekers as well as current employees in the industry. And we are looking for any support to amplify our message and to drive participation so that we can communicate that to the ministry and get refunded to do this program over, beyond May 31st.
Great. Thanks very much, Jamie. Thanks for taking us through that demo. It looks great. Any questions, comments from the group? Tricia.
Thanks for this. It's a fantastic initiative, and I've been doing a lot of futurist reading and looking at all of the stackable micro-credentials for people is really important. And I'm just wondering if you would be working with a local education institute to actually give the accreditation. I'm not just talking about Queens, it could be St. Lawrence, but getting that accreditation so that you would be developing stackable credentials with a noted compiled credential for those who take it.
Well, kudos to you for understanding micro credentials, because that's really I don't want to say a buzzword, but it's a new concept. So I am with St. Lawrence College. Sorry, I introduced myself earlier in the session, and I don't think I did it properly. So this is all certified through St. Lawrence College. And each graduate of the program will have 6 stackable micro-credentials that they gain throughout the program, plus the 3 industry credentials, WMIS, SmartServe, and Safe Food. And Anne-Marie, sorry, I think I spoke over you there.
No worries. I was actually just going to add at the end of your presentation about the micro-credentials. So each module is a micro-credential, and they are stackable to kind of complete the fundamentals program.
That's great. And I notice you have attractions and events, and then there was one that said cultural tourism, but to know even within Kingston itself that this is a music city, it's an art city, and how do we really train people in tourism about the arts being an essential part of tourism and an attraction magnet. So the cultural tourism seemed to be lower down on the list, but events, attractions, but there's a lot that could be done in terms of cultural tourism itself. It's just a suggestion.
Thank you for that, Trish. We'll certainly keep that in mind because it is a pilot project and we're always looking for feedback to improve. And we are hoping that the ministry will invest in future rounds so that we can add more elements to the program.
Craig.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering, Jamie, is there a simple way for people to register? Is there a link that goes directly to you guys that people can quickly click that maybe we could share with our partners around the table, just to get that opportunity out to everybody? I know I've seen social posts on the St. Lawrence College social channels, but just again to share it out with we've got great community partners here that again, if it's just a matter of simple click for people to register, I'm sure we can fill up your program.
So the registration is done on a person by person basis. So because it is a provincially funded program. So we would have anybody that is interested in the program email our program inbox, and we'd set up an introductory meeting with them to get them registered. I can share that email address in the group, and it is a fairly seamless process. There are a few extra steps with it being a grant funded project, but I'll certainly share any relevant information for the group, and that email's the perfect first step.
That would be great, Jamie. That would be very, very helpful for sure to help us get the word out. Any other questions, comments? Okay, not seeing anything else. So Jamie and Emery, thanks very much for that. That was excellent. We really appreciate your time and sharing that info with us. And yeah, we'll do everything we can to help spread the word for sure.
Thank you very much. And would it be best if I shared a couple other resources with Amber, then she could distribute with the group in terms of promotional materials and one page thing?
Absolutely, that would be great.
Okay.
Super.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, thanks, folks. So I think with that, we're going to we'll move to the next item on our agenda, where I'd actually like to have a conversation with this group about the roadmap going forward. So maybe to introduce that discussion. Thanks, Noor. So this is just a little bit of a summary piece of what we've been working on over the last year. We're coming up on a year of the economic recovery team, and we've talked a little bit about these three phases, really, of relief in the present, then moving to recovery, and ultimately to growth. So we've, of course, from our strategic planning that we had done last summer, we set up 4 working groups. We actually, I think, have had 6. We had the tourism working group that is operating, as well as the tax group that we'd set up. And then these additional 4 groups: funding and advocacy, workforce development, underrepresented groups, and community confidence. And so you can see there that we've marked a number of initiatives that have come forward from each of the working groups. So funding and advocacy, developing a business navigator role for, and we're working on the Canada Summer Jobs Grants to help with that, developing a supply chain project to help encourage buying local. Again, more work on collaborative grant funding, because we know that that's a key piece to get more grants, is how we pull different partners together. Advocacy for our city-run business support grant program, and then also work on the discovery of the social finance models for community investment. For workforce development, we have a pandemic worker survey that we conducted last year, new job search and career pathway tools for displaced workers, developing skills training programs for the arts sector. Of course, what we just saw a few minutes ago, the online tourism and hospitality fundamentals training program. Developed grant application for farming and food processing and skills development. I think it will be really, really key going forward. And then also AI-powered workforce skills and supply and demand tools. So that's just a summary of some of the work that the workforce development group has been working on. Underrepresented groups held the competitive advantage of inclusion event, which got amazing feedback, was really well received. Advancing the Kingston Workplace Inclusion Charter, which I think continues to grow, and I think is really, really important for the direction we want to go as a community. Celebrating Black entrepreneurs in Kingston event, was excited to be a part of a couple of things that happened back at the end of February. Advance the Bloomberg Innovation Project, which we saw at our last meeting, and really exciting work to, again, also make Kingston more welcoming to newcomers. And then the Queen's PhD Kingston Outreach Project, exploring in work poverty. And then the Community Confidence Group. Of course, I know that this group's done a lot of work with Queen's, the PhD Community Initiative, and then also the Smith School of Business on behavioral research to help to address competence and the Nudge campaign, monthly pandemic communications updates, and I think just working on coordinating our messaging among different business support programs. The geolocation data set to to have another point about data-driven decisions and being able to make sure we've got good data there. And then obviously some of the great work that's happened with the PhD community initiative as well. So that I just thought I would take a couple of minutes and just kind of survey, right, some of the things that have been accomplished and we've been working on over the last year. I think just the collaboration pieces has been really exciting for me to see as well as mayor. So thanks, Noor. I think you can take that down for a moment. So here's why I'd like to have a conversation with this group. So when we set up the recovery team last May, we set it up for a year, and we put so a year is coming up in just a few weeks. It will be a year. So what we had said, because we didn't know exactly how things were going to evolve and grow with this group, is that we agreed that we could extend the work of the recovery team beyond a year with the agreement of the group, obviously all of you, if the business support organization, so TK and KECO and the Downtown Business Association, the Chamber wanted to continue, and then also the city, and specifically City Council as well. So if we want the work to continue in some form, then I actually have to go to City Council next month to present that to them and to get that endorsement. But I didn't want to go any further until I first talked with you guys. I want to talk about what that pathway looks for. So right now, all I'm looking for is your feedback about whether the work should continue past next month or not. It doesn't mean that things won't change and can adapt. And so if the group would like to continue past May, then what I would propose is we would have a discussion at our next meeting in June about exactly what that form would look like. Hopefully the landscape will look different in a couple of months. And so we can discuss what changes we would like to see. So with that as an introduction, I think I would just like to throw it out to the group to say, are you interested in continuing this team, or do you feel like, okay, we've done a lot of great things and we should just kind of leave it where we're at? So again, I'm not trying to steer the conversation or the decision either way. I just want to provide that context and background, and would love to just hear from you guys, hear from the group about what you think about whether we should continue the recovery team. Tricia.
I think it would be a great idea to extend the work, because our job isn't done yet, because the COVID pandemic is longer than we thought. It happens to be a spectacularly talented and engaged group. And I think going into the next phase, I think we can be very future oriented in terms of what kinds of changes are going to be happening in our world. And during this pandemic, what can we put in place to be prepared for a period over the next 10 years that is going to be the most exponential increase in technology, and how that's going to be affecting us. So I think we could actually be very future oriented rather than improving what we've got right now, but what do we need to put in place right now? So post pandemic, we are ready for the future that's going to come to us at quite a bracing speed.
Thank you, Tricia. Pavan.
I would also ask, so a couple of things. I agree with Trish. I think our next iteration, if you decide to continue this group, is really futuristic. I think really looking big picture, visionary, 10 years, next pandemic, next crisis, that kind of thing. But what I also wondered is, we create a lot of work for the staff. And I think, again, I know Craig and his team and Amber were pretty stretched with this. So I think also looking at your resources and how it's managed, there's some really good initiatives that were started. So how do we maintain some of that momentum? Which ones do we keep? Which ones do we say are done? I think a look back might be helpful. And since a lot of the work has been from your staff team, it might be them looking at what's feasible to continue with everything else that's going on. So really 3 parts. One is agreeing with Trish about the futuristic strategic thinking beyond this year. And then what we do with the current priorities, and also the pressure we put on staff workload.
No, thanks, Bob. I really appreciate those comments for sure. And definitely those are things we would definitely want to explore and discuss as a group. Craig, did you want to comment from a staff perspective on this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship, and certainly grateful for Pavna's comment just regarding staff support. Certainly, my team has recognized the incredible contribution of all of you. I'm paid to be here. You guys are volunteering your time, and I'm so grateful for your insights. But we also recognize that this is a marathon. This is by no means over. There's lots of work to do today, and there's lots of work to do for tomorrow. We are finding additional resources, and I've asked actually Heather Scranage is on the call. She's got her camera off right now, but Heather's our business support manager. There's Heather. So Heather works in another group, but is sort of coming over to support the efforts of this group and some of the economic recovery activities in my office. So Heather's going to be a resource. And another one that will be joining, I think actually his paperwork will be done this week. But many of you may know Ian Murdoch, who was with Kingston Economic Development. Ian's going to be helping us out on a couple of projects as well, which is amazing. Ian is just an extraordinary member of the community, very passionate about the business community. He'll be supporting us. And we do have Diana Turkovic, who is a workforce development analyst. She's been on maternity leave. She's back at the end of next month. So in terms of staffing, we're starting to really gear up. We think that there's more work ahead, lots of hard work. So we are staffed and ready to take on the challenges that any great ideas you come up with, we're happy to work on.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks to you and to your team, and certainly to Amber in my office and to Noor at Kingston Active for their staff support and keeping us organized and moving forward for sure. Thank you. Other comments? Any other thoughts, comments, perspectives? Alison.
I was just going to echo that. I agree with extending things. Certainly from a tourism perspective, we know that full recovery is years away, and there's a lot of work to be done to get there. In terms of the subcommittees, the tourism working group is a very active group that's already looking ahead at summer, fall, and winter activations into next year. So it would be very good to continue with that group in particular, because we are working on executions that are happening over the next few months.
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you. Again, I echo that. I believe that we should continue as well. Being in the futuristic scope would be the way to be looking at where we go in the next steps. The group that I work with Pavna, and I'm very thankful that I was asked to join the advocacy and funding group. The amount of knowledge and expertise that comes from that, the support, what we do as a business support function in the community has been outstanding. The strength that we get from this group is it's incredible. And when I talk to my networks across the province, no one out there really has this strength of community that we have here in Kingston. And I really like to see this going forward. To Alison's point, this is going to be a long-term recovery, and we really need to stay on point with it. And this is, as I think Pavna said, or Tricia, this is an excellent group of individuals who have brought so much to the table. It's just incredible. So my vote is to move it forward.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I would echo the other members' thoughts on this, that this is going to be a long road to recovery, and there's going to be a lot of changes coming. And I like the idea of the futuristic approach. Hopefully there'll be positive changes. I think, a lot of what I'm hearing is that despite all the despair from COVID, it has brought different community groups together and has them working together. So that whole, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but the Build Back Better opportunity is here, and it will be here. And I think the more that we can work together as a community to improve our community as a whole, not just the individual sectors, I think there's a real opportunity. So happy to continue.
Thanks, Tim. No, I appreciate that. And again, I know everybody around this table is very busy. And so as our staff are all busy, but I appreciate the vision that people are sharing. And like I said, we can, if we want to continue with the work, it doesn't mean that it continues exactly in the way that we've done it. We will have lots of opportunity to discuss how we, what that framework looks like. But that's good to get that feedback. Sean, and welcome, by the way. I know that you were a little late joining us, so great to have you. Thanks for your time. We'd love to get your input on this as well.
Well, yeah, I would endorse continuing as well, Mayor. My feeling is, I think the points made about taking a more futuristic look are brilliant, and I think they would build upon what we've done now. I think there's an interim step too that I'm interested in because we have been able to coordinate through this group and the other groups of how do we advertise Kingston's assets in this particular time. So as things begin to loosen up, are we well prepared to reinforce to our residents how great a place this is to live and why they need to continue to engage with the community, and then also building out for visitors and potential residents, because we all see it reflected in housing prices. We see it reflected in the building sector. We see that Kingston is uniquely poised, I think, for growth. And I'm very interested in how we take the momentum we have from this group and the working groups and work specifically to coordinate, marketing and positive message. I think safety is the new currency. I think trust is new currency. And so these are things that I think Kingston has in spades, and this group could help forge those messages that would allow us, I think, to recover faster. And in particular, if we were also, as Tricia and Bhavna said, and others have echoed, if we were also aware of where things were headed and we were working cooperatively on those things, we might be able to beat other places to the punch. And so even though it feels like we're losing right now, I'd really like to win in the future. And I think we can do that. So I would be enthusiastic about continuing to stay on as long as I'm useful.
No, appreciate those comments for sure. Excellent. Anybody else would like to kind of just jump in on this at this point? Okay, so here's what I'm hearing from the group, and then anybody can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing from the group is that there is a desire to extend, but I'm hearing to shift probably in focus and then also in operation, and those are obviously details yet to be worked out. So with the permission then of this group, what I will do is I will go back to council next month. I will probably ask for some sort of extension without those details in place. And if I get that extension from council, then and hopefully I will, then we'll come back and at our next meeting in June, then we'll start to hammer this out. I'll probably have some discussions with our staff and also get input from the group and then start to put some of those pieces together. Does that sound like a good step going forward? Okay. Very good. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that. So next on our agenda, now I know I'd already kind of done a bit of a summary on some of the projects that the working groups are doing. I want to give a chance for the chairs to jump in with anything else that's ongoing or perspectives or things that you're hoping to tackle or are that we may not have highlighted yet. So just quickly go around the table just to the working group chairs. So maybe I'll just start with you from funding and advocacy. Is there anything else that you wanted to highlight from the group? Anything that you wanted to pass on as further updates?
Firstly, it's a great group, a lot of great ideas. We always leave the meetings feeling energized. There are a couple of projects that were highlighted in your presentation that we'd like to see continue. So I think the business navigators, this will be the test year once they are established. I think that's something you want permanently to help businesses in the future as well, whether you have 4 or 2 in the future. And I think the local procurement has a lot of potential. And I think I would like to see that continue, whether it's more an operational piece, but I think having the group provide their input has been helpful to Craig. And I think that's one that will really help in the long term for sustainability for the economy.
Excellent. Thanks, Bhavna. Does anybody in the group have any questions for Bhavna or any questions about what is or is happening under the funding and advocacy group. This is a chance for those of you that aren't part of one working group to kind of ask if you're curious about what's happening if you're involved. So just want to provide that opportunity. Okay, the community confidence group. Trish, any updates or anything you want to highlight for us?
I think the ongoing research has been very important, and looking at not only the community confidence and participating in local businesses, but also the community wellness. And I think one of the healthiest long-term directions that's come across is the need for not just the analysis of data, but the nudging of data. And so that, and the other thing that's coming across is that through technology, if we're going to online shopping, what kind of portal do we need to create to support local businesses in online as well as in person? So in terms of futuristic, that's a very big step forward, and would really like to salute Craig for all his work on that, because that's a big step forward that we're providing the community with, and local businesses and organizations, nonprofit and cultural organizations, data that's actually going to help us make decisions in the future. So I love the framework of research, but also the focus on data and changing habits of the public. And so I think we're already leaping into future directions with this particular committee, and really fabulous work that's been done by colleagues at Queen's University.
Thanks very much, Trish. Any comments or questions for Trish? Okay, ABBA, the underrepresented group. I know you guys are fabulous, and you know, you said last time you got like the best group ever. So
I do have the best group ever. Sorry, true story. Anyway, most of it has been covered. I think we left it off saying that we had a good first session in terms of the presentation that we had, and that should be a starting point to continue other conversations, and that we were really pleased with the turnout, and that there seemed to be an acumen from the city and the community to want to hear about underrepresented groups and how they can be incorporated in the workplace. We left it at waiting for our next meeting, where we will be hearing a presentation of the results from the Queen's research group to see where we should direct the group next. And so I think we're just taking direction based on what kind of some of the information they have gathered, and so we'll be able to better know how to navigate our next steps once we hear that. And so that's kind of where we're at with that.
Awesome, thanks, Eva. Any comments or questions on the underrepresented group? Dan.
I just want to say we have the best group leader ever.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dan. I know Dave isn't here. Craig, do you want to give an update on just the workforce group? Anything else that to highlight for us about what's going on there?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And Dave sends his regrets as an essential worker. He often gets called in at a very short notice. So he's on the front lines right now with his day job. Certainly, in terms of activities, lots of stuff happening. Obviously, workforce development will play a critical role in economic recovery. There's been an interesting shift in language, both in the space with government, away from reskilling to upskilling. And again, I think there was some concern from many that the term reskilling meant you were changing what you were doing completely, and whereas upskilling was again much more reflective of what actually is happening. So certainly in a lot of the work we're doing, and you saw the demonstration of the St. Lawrence College tourism program, it really is upskilling with a heavy focus. Your Worship, you mentioned about the application into the skills development program related to farming skills and food processing. Again, it is a result of the incredible collaboration and discussions we've been having at the Funding and Advocacy Working Group, talking about how do we get partners at the table early in the development of a project. And that project has actually 12 partners. including corrections, I've never partnered with. I know others, Loving Spoonful, Pavna, and United Way has, but they're coming to the table now and saying, how do we play a bigger role, and we want to be a partner, and again, bringing more partners to the table, understanding capacities and contributions is resulting in some very innovative projects. And the skills development project uses virtual reality goggles to actually train staff in food processing, which ties into our economic development strategy. Again, the idea is that we're pulling these things together. In terms of other sort of focuses that it's on my mind, and several have mentioned mental health. That we're focused on mental health in the workplace. I think with the burnout from the last year and a half, and certainly the big push right now, some sectors are harder hit than others. I think we're going to have to look very seriously at developing localized programs for that. The food strategy and tying into, I just referenced the food training, I think that's going to be a piece. My office is doing a fair amount of work as it relates to the development of the new rural strategy, which will be coming later this month to council. But TK has the culinary strategy. Pavna has the food security challenge. We recently just council approved a review or a change in the market strategy. So again, all of these things are tying together and certainly tied to tourism, but also support for members of our community. And lastly, I'll just reference, there's been a lot of discussion about data. I haven't figured out where to put a new project, so maybe we can have a lottery to see which working group gets this project. But we've got a new project with our partners at Queen's, Betsy Donald, who's Associate VP of Research, and a couple of MyTech students that want to build out a community vibrancy and resiliency data dashboard site. So we've got some early work done on that, and we'd certainly tie it in, hopefully, with our partners and friends at Public Health. But again, how do we pull together new data sets that might provide valuable information to organizations and members of our community? So that is in the works. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Craig. That sounds great. And to your comment and what others have raised about mental health, I'm hearing that all the time, all over the community. And so really, I think that's a great focus that it's going to be a big part of our recovery for sure. Okay, any other comments?
Oh, I see Abba's got her hand.
Go ahead. Sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a question / comment / something. I'm just wondering if is there a way as a city or community we can kind of pool or get a grant for like an EAP program for small businesses? So for example, we have benefits for our staff, but we've been closed so many times that those are also tied with them being working in some cases, or in other cases, they've reached their limits because mental health has been so much, like we have a cap as to what the value they can get within our plan for each of their services. And so I'm looking into an EAP plan, but obviously we're shut down again, and that's just another expense, which I'm happy to kind of give my staff. But I'm just wondering if as a community, can we get a grant that supports small businesses through somewhere that maybe we get part of it paid for, or it's like a grant application. So part of those funds get covered so that we know, regardless if we're working or not, our employees have a number that they can call in, because as we keep mentioning, mental health is a big deal. And they've asked, we just want to call someone and talk to them. We can't get in with our program. And so just wondering if there's I see Pavna has a hand up, so maybe there's already a solve that they can go to.
Sure. Pavna, and then if Craig wants to add anything, go ahead.
So certainly I think an EAP program, if you get a grant, would be great. But right now, just for immediate and for future, for everyone to know that Resolve Counseling does have free counseling. So again, let me link you up so you can work that out. The United Way is compensating them for a lot of this counseling, because a lot of people have lost their EAP programs or didn't have them in the first place.
Thanks, Pavna.
That's really great information to share. Craig, do you have any comments then on what we could look at?
I think that's a brilliant idea, and we'll go to work on that. We started to sort of frame out what a project might look like, but I love that idea of EAP for small business. I think that's very on point, and I think government would be very receptive to something like that.
Yeah, I fully agree. So thanks, Abba, for that suggestion, and we'll definitely get to work on that one. Excellent. Any other comments, any other issues, items, anything that anyone from the group wanted to raise? It is 10:26. I usually try to get you guys out in an hour and a half or less. I know how valuable your time is. So thank you for all the discussion this morning. Thank you for the feedback. It's very, very valuable to me. Thank you for all the great work that you have done and are continuing to doing. And I know it's frustrating. This is a difficult time, but we're going to get through this and we're going to be stronger on the other side. So, so I just appreciate being able to work with all of you. I think you're an amazing group and look forward to looking at that roadmap as we go ahead. So what I propose is that we'll reconnect in June and have those discussions. Hopefully by then things will be looking much better and brighter, and vaccines will be in people's arms, and we can look forward to that futuristic view that we're looking forward to. If we need to meet in the interim, if there's anything that comes up, certainly as we're managing just in the short term and these challenges, I will reach out, or feel free to reach out to me if there's other things that you'd like to discuss. I'm more than happy to just stay connected with you, particularly the next few weeks, and get through the other side of this shutdown. So, okay, so with that, happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you have a great day, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks so much.